Hey everyone, this is Living for the Weeknight, and on today's episode I'm with Tegan. Tegan's a Kiwi, and for the non-native English speakers, a Kiwi is someone from New Zealand, and she's someone I met on my travels about a year ago in Colombia. Tegan's a professional basketball player. She's currently playing in the Swedish league, so today's episode I guess is going to be a little bit different. Rather than having, someone who has a job and they pursue their passion outside, interviewing, someone whose job is their passion. And I had a lot of fun interviewing Tegan today, and I think you guys are going to really, really enjoy this episode. And once again, if you haven't done already, I'd really appreciate it if you could give the page a follow, give it a rating, and yeah, tell your friends. Enjoy. Hey Tegan, how's it going?
Going really well. Really, really well. Yeah, happy. Glad to be on your podcast finally.
I'm glad to have you. Just for context for the audience, Tegan is someone who I've asked to be on the podcast really, really long ago. We're talking probably February, March time when I originally had the idea for the podcast. Back when I thought I could just, record an episode of the podcast, not design anything, and then the podcast gods would sort it out for me, sort out all the artwork, sort out distribution, sort out all the non-glamorous behind the scenes things. But fast forward, what is 9 months, 8 months, something like that.
A while.
It's not working right now. A while, yeah. In the time between when I asked you to come on and now, I think we've both been in at least more than 2 countries.
Oh, for sure. I've lived in more than 2 countries in that time.
Yeah, you've... I didn't want to spoil it. That's some exciting stuff I was about to mention, but I'm going to leave that for this episode. But yeah, just to give you a bit of context, guys. Tegan's someone I met on my travels, a year ago now? I can't even remember when I travelled anymore. But I met her in Colombia, in Bogota. She was wearing this awesome bucket hat, which had been, I believe, crocheted for you by your twin brother.
It had, yeah. That makes me happy you remember that.
Oh, yeah. It's I remember seeing that bucket hat and I was like, well, that's cool. But, we met in Colombia and have been friends since then. And so, Tegan, before I keep stealing the show and talking about you, do you want to introduce yourself? Who are you and what do you do?
Of course. Yeah, so... we met quite randomly in a great hostel, right? And then we actually saw each other a few more times down the track of our traveling times. And then I saw Preet right at the end of my trip. I worked in Buenos Aires for a month in a hostel, and Preet actually was kind of the one that set it all up for me. He gave me the recommendation, and it was a great experience. But yeah, what do I do? Who am I? Such a big question. I am a professional basketball player, but at the start of this year, I was a backpacker. So I traveled in Central and South America for 10 months after finishing my master's degree. And then I went back home. I'm from New Zealand, originally from New Zealand. I went back home and played my first professional basketball season there. And then about a month and a half ago, I moved to Sweden, where I currently live. And I am playing my second professional basketball season over in Sweden. That's a very slim sort of piece of what I am and what I do. And yeah, I'm not baller's life. I'm not, which is kind of hilarious because that's my profession. But I love basketball. I enjoy it. But I also use basketball to, do a bit of travel, and, I live in Sweden now, and I think I've always used basketball as a catalyst for opportunities. And, I got my undergraduate degree and which is my bachelor's degree and my master's degree through playing basketball. So basketball's I'm very grateful for the sport because it has brought me many places in my life. I'm now 26 living in Sweden playing basketball. So yeah, is that good? Is that a little bit about me?
Yeah, no, that's great. That is. Yeah. I really like that, just how you did like normally, I think because a lot of people, including myself, haven't had exposure to professional athletes
Yeah.
before. Like even now, like I met you as Tegan the backpacker. Like I feel
Yeah.
like I do not know you at all as Tegan the basketball player, and that's not because of anything of how you are in the sport. Because I know you're
Yeah.
great. You're playing for the top team in Sweden right now, who's won every game this season. So you're clearly good.
Oh, that's so cute that you follow it. But Pri, I love that about, like, I love that fact. I love that you don't know me as a basketball player. I love that you don't know me as an athlete. So my favorite thing about traveling is like nobody knows any of your background. You get to be whoever you want to be. You get to present and express yourself in that way, and nobody knows all these different things about you to put you in these boxes or set boundaries around you. You know, like it's there's something so freeing in being a stranger to other strangers.
it,
And you know, like I love that about you. I love that you only know me as a backpacker because I love that side of me, you know?
Yeah, and it's amazing, just as you said there, like just being in a scenario where no one knows your history, no one knows nothing. You can be who you want,
Yeah.
and I imagine, especially for you being a professional athlete, life's pretty different compared to me as a actuary, where no one knows what an actuary is, so I can actually live in anonymity in the regular life.
Yeah.
But I guess kind of touching on that aspect, because you studied in the US through basketball,
Yeah.
and as far as I'm aware, college basketball is actually super big, and in some towns even bigger than like the regular league. Like it's in some college towns, it's followed tighter
Oh, for sure.
than
For sure. I
yeah.
mean, college basketball is huge, 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 huge. I mean, it's a huge money maker. It's a huge, there's a big viewership package there. So like in terms of consumerism and capitalism in the United States of America, college basketball is right up there. It generates so much money. Therefore, it's important to people, and people put a lot of money into it. So I went to a smaller Division One school. So Division One is the highest level of college basketball you can play. But I went to a smaller D1 school initially in New York called Colgate University, and I had a really great academic experience there. It's a really good academic school. And then my basketball experience was not so great. Got my degree there and got an extra year because I had injured my knee my first year in the States, and therefore I got the opportunity to go play at BYU in Utah, which was also D1, but a much higher school. It's what they call a Power Five school. So if you're in a Power Five conference, you're a Power Five school. So they're now in the Big 12, which is probably, this means nothing to you, but it's a really good basketball conference in the United States. And I went there. I played there for 2 years because of COVID. I got another year, so I got really, really lucky in terms of how many years I got to play and how many years I got to study. But yeah, it was definitely I don't want to say it was a big deal, but it was more just like it was very intense. Like I was talking to my friend recently actually about this, and I feel like playing college basketball was it was more intense than being a professional athlete. Like right now I have my workouts. I have 2 workouts a day. I have a morning workout where I do lift or where weights or like a shooting workout, and then I practice in the evening. But other than that, like my time is my time, and I do what I please. I go where I please. All these things where like when you're in college, when you're in university, on a team, everything is so much more structured, and there's always people in your business, and it's just busy, and the intensity is just like so much higher. But then maybe again that's a maturity thing, and I've grown out of some of that intensity. So it could be a combination of both. But yeah, definitely a very intense time with basketball in college, in university in the States. And now I think which is funny because I've only taken it more seriously, right? Now I'm actually a professional athlete. And now I feel like it's less intense for me in the most wonderful way, where I'm actually really enjoying it. I really like playing basketball. Yeah.
Yeah, and it makes sense to me because, before you were studying at the same time, like you've got exams and you've got your whole college degree that matters too. And also imagine, like, here's the thing that I find it hard to wrap my head around. You're studying university and you're playing professional sport at a college level, which, as you've established, is super huge in the United States.
and you're doing this at a young age. So I imagine there's so much more mental maturity that comes through with it from experience in the years, which probably makes it now that you're not doing a degree, even though you're playing at a higher level, it's more manageable, I guess.
Yeah, well, I think it's interesting. It's interesting that you say that because, well, one, I feel like it, the highest level of basketball I ever played was at BYU in Division One, and I think the intensity and the pressure and all that sort of stuff, you really do have to learn how to what's the word, kind of move through it, and not take it so personally. And I think now, like you talked about, the maturity of being young and having to go through that. Like I'm from New Zealand, right, which is a tiny little island that is very hard to get to, especially when you move from New Zealand to Sweden. It's many long flights. But I moved from home when I was 19. I just turned 19, and I moved away, and I've never lived home other than 4 months this year. I've never lived home since. So, I moved away from home at a very, very young age. And I think that, along with the intensity of the experience you're having, it makes you grow up pretty quick. It makes you realize, it makes you create your little survival system. Like how are you independent in your life, and how do you create space for other people to help you with your needs? And I think I learned that at a very young age because I moved continents, to go to university and play basketball and, study and all that. And culturally it was different, like all these different things that I had to grow up really fast, right? And most people do when they go to university, right? It's a I don't want to say culture shock, but it's definitely a big step to leave home, I think. I think some people are more ready than others, but like I was definitely very, very ready. But yeah, it's just interesting because I feel like it just makes you grow up a little bit. And every year I feel like I grow more and more in that, especially playing basketball, being on a team. Like being on a team as an 18-year-old and being on a team as a 26-year-old, very different Tegan, like very different person. And I'm proud of the person I am today, and I'm proud of the growth I've made through all these experiences.
I love that. And it feels like such a honest take about it. And like one thing I noticed there, so you said like, most people do mature, of course, when you go to college or university. But I imagine with sport, it feels different. It feels like to me that more maturity is kind of expected, given like I might be completely wrong with this. But a lot of people like look up to athletes as like, I don't know, like they should have the wisdom of like a 40-year-old or something, or like they look to them as role models. And I imagine like, being in that team setting, performing at a high stage, even being on television or doing interviews, did you feel like that whole experience just kind of aids to that fast track into maturing?
Yeah, I did. No, for sure. I think there's a great point there. I think me personally, I think I've always been quite a mature kid, like, which I think allowed me to handle it a little bit better than maybe, some others that struggled with that side of things. And I still struggle. That's the thing. Like, I think everyone struggles with it. I think you've actually, hit a point that college sport doesn't really address as much as they should. And that's, you have, 17, 18-year-old kids going to these schools and playing, they're playing in front of thousands of people. They're getting all this attention. They're thrust completely into the spotlight. And I think sometimes the expectation of you to not be an 18-year-old kid is a little bit unfair, like to not have the ups and downs that any other non-athlete would have as an 18-year-old. I feel like there's a little bit of this pressure. Well, not even a little bit. There's a lot of pressure, to really work hard and to excel and to, the whole no days off and get better and grind and love it and love the grind, fall in love with the grind is like, for me, I just, I look at my journey and I don't necessarily agree with that. I think some people can excel in that. I don't think there's, anything to be ashamed with, putting in all the work and doing, and I've I've worked hard, for sure. I've worked hard for this, I'm not saying that I haven't. I just think the mentality of pushing really young kids into this tunnel of like, this is how to succeed and success is the most important thing is detrimental in many ways to mental health, to, your emotional stability as a really, really influential growing human, right? Because from the ages of 18 to 22 is a huge, huge, huge period of growth in your life, for any person's life. And then to add sport to that and say, go and perform, go be successful, achieve. I think it's tough, or can be really tough. And so I think there needs to be some sort of balance with how that's maybe addressed. And I think some coaches do it really well, and some coaches do it really, really, really bad. But yeah, just the understanding that like, you're a kid at 17, I'm 26 and I still feel like a kid, So I feel like there's a lot of room there for maybe a little bit, not a little bit. There's a lot of room for empathy there that's not there, Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it does. And I completely agree with that. That's the perception that's given. Whenever there's a story about a young athlete in the paper, and it might just be something like young athlete caught at party during the regular season, and it could be even like they just went to a party, didn't drink, they were just having, they're at a birthday party, and it will be portrayed negatively of how dare this person do something normal that people their age do, and not, as you said, be in love with the grind to the extent that all they do is train and play. And it's just mad. Like, I know a lot of people would love to be in the position where they can compete at that level. Well, actually, no, I'd like to say I think they're in love with the idea that they could be at that position.
No, I think that's the point though, right there, Preet. Like, I think a lot of people would be like, yeah, I'd love to be a professional athlete. And I even think I feel like this within my family. Like, I have two brothers who adore basketball, both play basketball, not at the professional level, but, very active in the basketball scene. And I think there's part of it that, like, they're definitely proud of me and they definitely, respect what I'm doing and, my role. I just think sometimes it's like, it's not all sunshine, it's not all rainbows and sunshine and butterflies. There's a lot that you have to sacrifice. And I don't even mean, physically in being an athlete. I mean, like, emotionally and mentally, you sacrifice a lot. You sacrifice years of relationships with coaches and power imbalances and all these sort of things where, like, you have to really grind through, emotional and mental adversity most of the time. You rarely ever meet a professional athlete that's like, oh yeah, I've never faced any adversity. You know what I'm saying? And like, that adversity really makes or breaks people. And sometimes it's just so not focused on because it's so not glorious, it's such an unglorious part of sports in general, or maybe of life. Actually, we could probably just expand it to anything that you choose as a passion, right? But specifically in my case, I feel like there's this element of like, it's not always sunshine and rainbows, and sometimes you only see the outcome and the good, and sometimes you don't see all the other stuff that you had to work through to get there.
Like, I want to speak a little bit about your time in the US, but one question that I've kind of thought that kind of spawned out of that was, given, as you said, it's not all sunshine and roses, like every minute, are there any moments you kind of fell out of love with basketball?
Oh my gosh, yeah. Oh my gosh. That's, yeah. So the first school that I went to in the States that I did my bachelor's degree at, like I said, the academics was amazing, and I'm a big nerd. I love school, so that brought me, a lot of peace being there. But emotionally and mentally, and even physically, I suffered a lot of abuse at the hands of my coach. Just like he would, practice us for 4 hours a day, and we had so many injuries and we had so many problems, and we had, just the physical toll of it was awful. But that was nothing compared to the mental toll of, being called worthless and selfish and lazy every single day of your life, every single day, and walking on eggshells and never knowing when you were going to make a mistake and not knowing how to not, screw up and it was awful. So I graduated from my undergrad in 2020, right when COVID hit. And I ended there being like, I'm not playing basketball ever again. I was done. My relationship with basketball was like, you got me a degree, but oh my gosh, I'm not sure if it was worth it, the damage it did to me. And then COVID hit and I had this extra year of eligibility to use. And I was like, I really wanted to go traveling, but I couldn't, obviously. That was just like, so COVID for me was like, I'm obviously, not downplaying a global pandemic. But for me, it was almost like a catalyst of, okay, we'll just try it. And if you hate it, it's 1 year and then you're done, right? And I actually loved playing basketball at BYU. So the next experience I had was so incredible. It completely changed my relationship with basketball. I had teammates and coaches. It was really the coaches and the staff. I had people around me that respected me, that valued me, and treated me in that way and spoke to me in that way and didn't belittle me. And, there was just so many elements of care. And so I give BYU so much, that women's basketball program at BYU, I give it so much credit for where I am now, because I would not be playing basketball still, And then after I was done, I knew I was like, I need to go traveling. I've wanted to do it my whole life. And so I took a year off and traveled. But, my relationship was strong enough with basketball and I had, a good headspace to say, hey, like, why not try? And if you don't like it, it's not the end of the world. And now I'm still playing and I live in Sweden. But I definitely have had very, very low moments of attaching my identity way too closely to who I was as an athlete and not just who I was as a person, if that makes sense. Like I really had to, that experience made me completely detach my identity from who I was as an athlete. So no matter if I have a good game or a bad game or I get a contract or I don't get a contract or no one wants me on their team or whatever it is, like that's separate from who I am as a person and the value that I have as a person, And I really, really had to discover that through this awful experience, because when you're an athlete and your identity is so closely tied to being an athlete, the highs and lows of every athlete, right? Because every athlete has that, just throws your whole life out of balance. Because, when you get told you suck every day, you don't hear, oh, I suck as a basketball player, right? Even if you don't, right? You hear I suck as a person. And that just, you internalize, I did. I internalized that and I became, I just created this terrible relationship with myself through the way that I was viewed as an athlete. And so now I have a lot more strategies, I could say, to deal with separating the two, like you can tell me I suck. And I'm not going to say I don't care that you tell me I suck, but you're not going to affect who I am as a person. That doesn't make me less lovable if I can't dribble a ball and put it in a basket, Things like that, where that's the maturity and the growth, I think, with doing this for years, is like you really have to separate the two.
Yeah, it sounds healthy, to be honest, because I think it's different for every single person, but having that separation, I imagine, allows you to relax on the court more and maybe play just better, not be, anxious about it all the time.
Exactly. No, exactly. I mean, it honestly makes the sport more fun. Like as soon as I really deeply understood that and believed it, because you can say that, but you cannot, there's a difference between saying something and believing something. So once I really, really, really believed that, basketball just became so much more enjoyable for me. It took the pressure off, because I'm like, it doesn't actually matter, in the best way. Like obviously, Tegan, there's a reason why you're here. People aren't going to pay you money for you if you suck. But if you have a bad day, you have a bad day, People in normal jobs have bad days, and they don't get ridiculed, and it doesn't affect their. Well, they could. I don't want to downplay that, but just the intensity of whether or not your skill is perfect on, or your craft is perfect on one day. Like it's okay. It's really for me. I'm like, this is how I think about it. It's not that deep. It's a game. I'm loved. Yeah. My family loves me. I'm happy. I'm healthy. I have so much to be grateful for. It's a game.
It's good, and it's true. It's true. It is a game. Yeah. it's a game that's become widely popular to the point that people want to view it on TV, and this is how all this money's got involved. But it's nice as well, because I imagine, like, when you were growing up, you didn't want to go into basketball because you're like, I want to go into basketball just because I want to make money or something, or I want it to be every aspect of my life. I imagine you wanted to go into basketball because you liked it and you enjoyed it and you wanted to have a fun thing to do.
Oh, for sure, yeah. And I think that's the thing that sometimes gets people, is like, you have this love for the game and it pushes you to do all these things and to succeed and to achieve, you know. Like when I was in high school, anyone that knew me knew, like, my dream was to go to America and play Division I basketball in college. Like, that was my dream. I never had dreams about playing professionally. I never had any of these dreams, right? Like that. And I was going to do anything to make that happen, right? And it was so intense, and it was so, and, you know, I'm proud of myself. I was a driven kid. But sometimes I look back and I'm just like, there's a lot of sacrifices that I made as a young person to be where I am, you know? And I appreciate that too, you know? Like I feel gratitude for the young me to see where I am now and see, you know, like, you had that love for the game and you were so passionate. And sometimes when you don't find that balance, you get destroyed and you hate the game, which is kind of what happened to me. And luckily I just had I genuinely believe I was just so lucky that I had a good experience that kind of brought it back. Because this could be a very different conversation. Yeah, for sure.
And given you talked there just about, you know, you were dreaming of going to the US since you were young, like, what actually got you into basketball?
That's a good question. I think, like, my natural answer to that would probably be, like, my dad. My dad is from the States. He's from California. And he is a big basketball fan. He's always loved basketball, always played, always coached. He's been a volunteer women's high school basketball coach for, like, probably 9 years. And, yeah, I think me and my two brothers, we all just played growing up, and I think I realized, like, I could use it as a springboard for something else, you know? And I was, you know, pretty talented when I was younger. And, I just think I saw it as an opportunity, which it has been my whole life. But yeah, I would probably say my dad. My dad's kind of the first person that introduced me to it. And yeah.
Like, I imagine, like, when you're young, just you kind of probably just knew, you're like, I'm good at this, and it's not that I'm a bit better than other people. It's more than that.
Yeah.
And you just went with it. And given I'm sure, like, you know, growing up, being at school, you're clearly, like, very good at basketball. What was it like when you got to the US, playing first division college level with other people just as talented as you? What was that experience first like?
Yeah, it was definitely, it was definitely, I don't want to say a culture shock, because I think the actual culture of the States was a bit of a culture shock, just moving to a different country, as it would be for anyone, I think. But I think, yeah, it was exciting, honestly. That's how I would say it. Like, I was so ready, you know, I was so ready to leave home, and I was so ready, like, this was my dream, and I was, you know, so I think, like, emotionally, I was already preparing myself for months before I even stepped on that flight, you know? So I think, honestly, it was just exciting. It was really exciting to be, you know, surrounded by other people that had the same passion and the same dream as me and the same goals. And I'm such a people person. I love being on a team. I really do. I think in life, whether it's sports or some other, you know, concept of a team, because I think there's lots of different concepts of teams. I don't think they're just exclusive to sports. But for me, I'm like, I love a team aspect. I love having teammates. I love working with other people. I love people. So yeah, I think I was just excited.
Nice. I like that. That's great, that is, because I feel we're different in that aspect, where if it was me, I'd just be anxious as fuck. Like, I went to university and after going to school and being pretty good at my little school in Coventry, I was like, at university, I was like, oh shit, in terms of intelligence, I'm like middle of the pack. This is different.
Yeah.
And that's not even on the athlete scale.
Yeah. No, I think everyone does that when they move into a new chapter of life, right? Like, I'm not going to say I wasn't anxious. I just think that there was so much, there was just so much intensity in my life. And I was was drawn to that intensity for sure. Yeah.
For sure. And so I remember you mentioning previously, while you were in the States, you had a knee injury which actually set you away for quite some time. Mm-hmm. What was that experience like, having a major injury like very soon into your athletic career?
Yeah, it was interesting. So it was my freshman year, my first year of university in the States. And I'd been there about 4 months. I've been living in the States about 4 months. We had just started our season, and it was actually finals week. So it was finals week, and we just had a practice, and I tore my ACL. And I had never been injured ever in my life. Like I'd never missed a game. I'd never, like not even a bad ankle sprain. So I think for me, I didn't quite comprehend it. And I think that was kind of a blessing in disguise, because it really kept me focused. Because I didn't quite understand like how difficult the next 9 months would be. It really kept me focused. So I was really lucky. I had a great athletic trainer who worked really hard with me. And, when you're a D1 athlete in the States, like you get your surgery and then you get, everyday treatment, you're working, so you get you get access to a lot of good resources. So I was really lucky in terms of my recovery. And then just mentally, I think, because I hadn't really I'd got to the States and I'd gotten my scholarship and, but I'd played 6 games. So I hadn't really tasted it, So it gave me a lot of motivation to get back to like what I wanted to do. I think obviously it was difficult, and obviously there was a lot of, there were a lot of mental battles more than physical, I would say, to kind of work through what a season ending injury would be like. But I would honestly say that there's so many blessings and, small, wins that came out of that injury. It gave me the opportunity to go to BYU. It gave me, the opportunity to actually work through something that was out of my control, Before that, my life had really been like, do your high school and get good grades and play basketball and play netball and play, because I played lots of sports in high school, and do really well in everything, and then go forward and then keep going. And then suddenly it was just like, whoop, halt, stop. You have no control over this. And now this is what you have to do. So I think, again, it was just another experience for growth. Another reason for gratitude, honestly. I feel very grateful and lucky to be in the situation I am, and to have gone through that, honestly, which sounds weird to say, but like I feel like I'm in a good spot. And I think I learned a lot from being injured.
Yeah, and it sounds like it. It's all led you on this path, which has led you to Sweden.
Yeah.
And speaking of that path, I found it amazing that you did take up time to go solo traveling for about almost a year, if that's correct.
Yeah.
Because normally when you look at athletes, I think you've done something that athletes rarely ever do, which is actually take a break in between, and not because you're injured. Really credit to you, because I think a lot of athletes might stress over, if I take time out, will that affect my athletic career or blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
But what made you want to go traveling?
That's a great question. I grew up in a family of solo backpackers. So my mum and dad both have spent years of their life solo backpacking, Africa, Asia, South America. Like they've done it all. Like they're my backpacking heroes. And so we grew up, my parents are classic hippies, I would say, in that like my parents met traveling and, had my brother along the way, my older brother. He was born in Africa, in Zimbabwe. And then they moved back to the States, had me and my twin brother, and then thought, don't want to raise our kids in the States. And then just moved like my whole family to New Zealand. So my mum, the first time she'd ever been to New Zealand was when she was moving her 3 children, her 2 2-year-olds and her 4-year-old, to a country she'd never been before. My dad had only been once to get a job. And they just kind of, that's their way of life. So I think my parents instilled a lot of love, or a big love for adventure and for the journey, because they just, like, growing up, we didn't have a TV. Growing up, we listened to travel stories. That was our version of TV or entertainment in my house, was Mum, tell us a travel story. And so we grew up hearing about all these insane journeys and trips my parents had been on, and as we got older, we heard more, serious ones where, oh, this one was a bit dangerous, or this happened, or, like specifically my mum should write a book about her travel stories, like she just, speaking of Colombia and us meeting in Colombia, she was in Colombia in the 80s when literally no tourists should be, because it was so dangerous. She was on a night bus, actually from Bogota, where we met. She was on a night bus that got held up and people got shot, and like, she has the most insane stories. So I grew up with all these amazing stories about the world and meeting people and traveling and being able to do it, relatively relatively cheap.
Yeah.
I couldn't quite find that word, but
Inexpensive, that's fine.
Yeah, inexpensive. Thank you. But I feel like there's this. Well, I just feel lucky that I grew up with parents that, demonstrated or gave us, some sort of insight into how you can travel one way, because there's no right or wrong way to travel. I don't think. If you want to go stay at a 5-star resort, I'm not judging you for that, right? Like, any way to travel is your way, Go see the world in whatever way you find meaningful. I just feel really lucky that my parents found solo backpacking meaningful and shared that with us. My older brother has done the most solo backpacking out of us siblings. He's spent years, he literally spent 1.5 years in Southeast Asia right out of high school. He spent, 6 months in India. He's been to Iran. He's done it all. He was actually in the Nepal earthquake in 2015, stayed for months and helped, volunteered there. Like, he's again someone that now I look up to with travel stories. And then my twin brother spent some, 6 months in Southeast Asia and then said, oh, I'm going to Central. So I just have all of these, family members that are traveling and doing all this cool stuff. And I literally only ever got 1 month off a year because of basketball. And so when I graduated with my master's, I thought, okay, Tegan, if not now, then when? There's always going to be something, right? There's always going to be a job. There's always going to be I graduated from BYU with 3 other seniors, and all 3 of them played pro immediately in Australia, Brazil, and Germany. I was the only one that didn't go play pro straight away.
Yeah.
And I just knew, like, I never even doubted it for a second. I just knew, go and do it, go experience it. Like, I knew that the experience would be transformative. I didn't know how, but I just knew it because of the impact that solo backpacking has had on my immediate family, my mom, my dad, and my brothers. So yeah, and I it was so transformative. It was, what solo backpacking is like. Like, it is deeply challenging, but deeply rewarding in so many ways. And I feel proud of myself for being able to say, hey, I'm going to take that break. And then I feel very, very grateful that I have a family that didn't even question it, Like, it's amazing when you have a family that supports that kind of decision, when most people around me who knew me really well, right, especially in a basketball context, were like, what are you doing? Like, you're at the peak of basketball right now. I finished my senior year at BYU and we were ranked, and I had a great season. I had great stats, and I just said, I just know this is the right time. So yeah, I think I'm lucky that I had that support from my family as well.
Yeah. And I think it's definitely been transformative for you. Like, I know because we've talked a lot, previous times in the last year, a little bit about it. But what do you think was the main thing you gained from it? Because I remember when I met you, I don't even think on the first day I knew you were a basketball player. I think it took like quite a bit of time before I even knew that.
Yeah.
I remember when you're traveling, having fun, you're in Argentina, volunteering. I wasn't even sure if you were going to go back and play basketball.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, this person might just travel for 2-3 years, volunteer around.
Yeah. No, it's so interesting because I that was one of my favorite things. That's why I think travel for me was so transformative, because I had lived such a structured, routine life until I was 25 traveling, like I had, most people have a routine and a schedule and people like to, stick to it. But like I had, by the hour had planned out my weeks for years and years because of when I had practice, when I had team meetings, when I could go to eat lunch, when I needed to be here, and obviously classes and everything, but like everything for me was structured. I didn't make that many decisions about my life other than the big ones to go to these places and, study and play basketball. But then my schedule was out of my control. It was in other people's hands and I went where I needed to be. And, and I'm not mad at that. I'm not, complaining. I just had never quite realized how structured my life was. And I went from 100 to 0. I went the opposite. I went to full on intense. Okay, Tegan, you have, a media interview here, and then we're going to have practice, and then you have this, and then you have 20 minutes where you can eat here. Like it was that kind of schedule to, I'm going to wake up here and I can decide to cross a border or swim in a beach all day, like it was just, and that was super challenging for me at the start. I was like, I don't know how to do this. Like, I don't know how to make decisions every single day without a routine. And I hit the wall, like at 4 months, I hit a wall where I was like, I don't know if I can do this. Like, it is draining making decisions all the time. And I felt pressure about people being like, you have to go see, and we had this conversation, right? We talked about this a lot when we were in Bogota together. Like, you have to go see this place and you have to go do this. And the minute I just stopped caring about all of this pressure to like do the most and be a good traveler and whatever that meant, oh my gosh, travel became like the most freeing, like I cut off all my hair and bleached my hair and, changed my style and everything just outwardly became an expression of what I felt inwardly. And I would spend days traveling where I would go to a cafe and I would write in my journal, or I would call my mom, and that would be a great day. So I just took all structure and all discipline out of my life, literally discipline. I had never, ever not worked out for more than probably 2 or 3 weeks in my life, since I was like 12. And then I took 10 months off where I did not, other than, okay, to be fair, I did a lot of hiking. Like I went to Peru and did a lot, I was active.
It's not working out though. That's
but the difference to like, I cold turkeyed it. I said, I didn't even think about it, right? And it was amazing. I learned how to be by myself, Pri. I learned how to spend time with myself. Before that, I had never really been by myself other than, accidentally. And I was really by myself in all these foreign countries where I didn't speak the same language, where I knew nobody there. And it became empowering. It became something that I really still right now hold on to as a beacon of who I am. It's my independence. Like I know how to get around. I know how to move from A to B. I know how to move places. I know how to take care of myself. I know how to ask for help. I know, I know how to keep myself safe. And there's all these things that I became even more secure in myself about. And I really enjoy who I am, independent of what I do. And that was the biggest thing for me because I'd never not been an athlete. I had always been an athlete. And it was the first time where I met people and like they had no fucking clue. Oh, sorry. I don't know if you can swear on this, but they had no clue.
No, swear. Give as many fucks as you want.
Nobody knew, right? And it was just, that was freeing. That was freeing because it was like, oh, so you just meet Tegan. Detached from any identity that you might know I have or that you might know about me. It's just Tegan. And then I'm literally just at face value. What you see is what you get. Boom. And it just became magical. It became magical. So it's just, I met so many people that I would never have met. I had so many experiences I would never have experienced. And I have so much gratitude for the person that I am because of travel, because I just feel so secure about the independence in my life.
Yeah. And I completely agree with you there. Like traveling does give you that. And I think it all stems from what you said before. You kind of like the biggest lesson I learned from traveling was you stop giving a fuck about things that don't matter.
Yeah.
Like you really learn that there is no right way to do it. Like, kind of, as you said, realizing I don't have to see everything everyone wants to see. If I feel like it, for the next month, I can go to a cafe every day, drink coffee, and write in my diary, and that's good.
Yep.
Like,
And feel good about it. Yeah.
Exactly. You're still enjoying your experience, and you're just like, it's a part of it. It really is a part of it. And I also love that when I met you in Bogota, like a few days after meeting you, that's when you got the haircut and dyed your hair.
Yeah.
And I remember when I first saw you, I was like, no, this looks like you, Tegan. It actually felt like...
Yeah.
It felt
You
like I
said that
saw
to
the
me.
transformation. Yeah. It felt like I saw the transformation happen. And
Yeah.
I
You
remember
really
you got your
did.
head and you looked happy. And I was like, no, this is Tegan. And
Yeah.
it's like, if I think of you, I think of you with that dyed hair. I don't think of...
Yeah.
But,
Good. I'm glad.
and
That's my vibe.
I love it. And would you say that traveling, that was the moment you realised, was that the first time you're like, I'm Tegan, not just Tegan the basketballer?
Yeah. That's such a good way to put it. But yes, it is. It's the first time that I got to physically detach from that. You know, I talked about detaching from that identity emotionally and mentally, but physically, like, you weren't going to see me in a basketball in a pair of basketball shorts, you know, like, you would have no idea that I was an athlete. You just got Tegan, you know, and that was so special for me to fall in love with who that person was. And be that person.
Yeah, no, I like it. I really like it. Another thing I kind of wanted to touch on is, so like, I guess this podcast I'm doing with you is kind of different to the ones I do normally, because normally it kind of follows a format of someone who studies or has a job and they're pursuing something outside of that. But for you, you're doing professional basketball as your job, which is really cool. And I wanted to just ask you, would you still regard basketball as your passion, or more as a job, or a bit of a hybrid?
That's a great question, Preet. I'm going to say hybrid. I think, and I'm going to say hybrid because that's where I want to be. I don't want it to be my passion. I don't want it to be my everything. And I don't want it to just be my job, you know? Like, I want it to be the balance of both, where I love what I do and I love playing basketball, but it's also my job, and that's okay. And it can be both. So yeah, I would say both.
I like that. It's nice. It's basically like you have a job where you're very interested in it. You enjoy it. You like enjoy to follow it as well. And it's not. And yeah, I don't know. It's something that I think a lot of people don't get to experience, like in different ways. Yeah. Like, other athletes might, like, you do get some athletes who, for example, the person who came to mind was Nick Kyrgios, the Australian tennis player, who said many times tennis is more a job and a paycheck for him. Like, I think there's been moments where he's really not loved tennis and he's doing it because he's like, hey, this is what I'm good at and it pays. But then you have the opposite, where you have sports people who are like, this is my whole life. I think, breathe, eat it every moment of the day. Like, the person I'd think about in that aspect is, say, like, I guess Novak Djokovic, who really to a T thinks about any single little thing he would put into his body and be so strict with diet and everything, because all he thinks of is tennis. Not that I've asked him personally, more what I've read. But I like that. Yeah. And I also wanted to ask, so before I kind of get back to the basketball, because I've got so many questions I want you to ask you about the basketball. You say it's a hybrid of a passion and your job, but is there anything outside of basketball you'd like to pursue?
Honestly, right now, I think I put pressure on myself to be doing something else. Like, well, you need to be building something else or growing in some other way. And I got to Sweden, and right now I'm actually just really happy what I'm doing. So no, short answer, no.
That's good. And it's like, it's not like you should need to. You're already like on a new part of your adventure. You've barely been in Sweden. Like, it's still a recent thing. like I've been in London longer than you've been in Sweden, and I have not been in London for a long time. I've been here since like early September.
Yeah.
But no, I like that. And so kind of going back to the basketball, so you went traveling and then you went to New Zealand. Was going to play basketball in New Zealand more about going home, or was it
Yes.
kind of like, okay,
Yeah. It
it
was,
was,
I'm going to try this professional basketball thing. They're also going to pay for my flight home. You know, they're going to set me up. They gave me a great contract, give me a card, go around. And, you know, like it was such a sweet deal. Obviously I wanted to play for the team. I thought the organization was awesome, and they did turn out to be awesome. I had a great experience. But yeah, definitely part of it was going home and being at home for more than 4 weeks. Yeah, for sure.
yeah, I like that. And it's, as you said, like they were a good team, and you got to the final. Like you played in the final last year. What was it like getting to the finals of a big tournament?
It was awesome. Yeah, we got kind of unlucky. Our captain literally got really bad food poisoning the morning or the night before, so she didn't play the final. And then we were missing another of our international players had got injured. So it was a little bit unfortunate, but cool experience. It was at home, which was awesome. It was in Wellington, where the team's based, and that's where I'm from. So yeah, very cool experience for sure.
I love that. And yeah, it must have been, it sounds like very unfortunate with what happens with the team, but I guess it's a part of sport. But
Yeah, it happens.
it happens.
And it's a game, so.
Yeah, it's, as you said, it's a game. It's a game.
It's a game.
And, you know, like after the season happened, what was it immediate that you were thinking, hey, I want to go abroad and do something? Or how did like the transition from that final to moving to Sweden happen?
Yeah, so I had an agent. During the season, I decided, okay, I'm going to try this out. Like, I'm enjoying this. I'm going to try this whole professional basketball thing out. And so I had an agent, and it was really just week to week. And so the first week, literally the week after my season ended in New Zealand, I got contacted by a team in Iceland and a team in Sweden. And yeah, then the following, so I chatted with the coach here, I chatted with the GM. And then the following week, they offered me a contract, and 4 days later, I was on a plane to Sweden. So it was all go, go, go. But I think I was also quite prepared mentally for that, because I knew it could have, I knew that the possibility was there. So I was definitely ready.
Damn, I love that. And I guess, you know, after you've already moved to the US before to play and you've been backpacking, I feel like for people who have backpacked for a really long time, especially alone, the prospect of moving to a new country for a job, it's kind of a bit less phasing, in my opinion.
For sure. I had friends that are like, what do you mean you're leaving in 4 days? I'm like, I'm leaving in 4 days. Like, I'm so chill. Like, it's not a bit. 4 days is a long time to pack your stuff.
Yep. Agreed. Like, I think at most, I just moved flats recently and I packed my stuff in half a day.
Exactly.
Like, that's everything I owned.
Yeah.
What I guess, like, that sounds pretty chill, but how has it felt since being there? Because you have, at the end of the day, you've uprooted your life to a new country with a new language, albeit I understand that pretty much everyone in Sweden does speak English.
Yeah, I'm lucky they speak English for sure. I love Sweden. I love the vibe. I think it's cozy. It's cold, but I like, they have fika, which is like a little coffee and, a little time to spend to take a break. And, there's candles everywhere, and they care about being cozy and warm, and I love the aesthetic here. And, my teammates are great. My coaches are great. Like, I'm very happy. Yeah. I think I got very lucky with where I landed for sure.
Awesome. I've never been to Sweden, but at some point I've got to go watch you play a game.
For sure. This is a good place to be. It's a fun, warm, cozy vibe. Sweet. I'm pro Sweden. I'm a Sweden fan.
I love that. And would you say, like, with the rest of your team, are people mainly Swedish, or is it international as well?
Yeah, so each team's allowed 4 international players, and so everyone's Swedish except for me. There's a Danish girl, a Serbian, and an Estonian. So that's quite cool. Just to meet new people. And yeah, again, I love being on a team. So being around different people in general is just exciting and fun for me.
I love that. It's just, yeah, it must, that's the thing I do like about sports as well. Gives you an opportunity to just actually be international and to meet other people from different walks of life. And probably also, I don't know, discover even within your own cultures, there's a lot of similarities and differences within the sport in terms of, I guess, everything.
Yeah, for sure. No, for sure.
So I guess, yeah, at the moment you've just moved to Sweden, you're playing the season. I don't want to ask you stuff like, oh, are you going to be here at the end of the season, blah, blah, blah. No, I'm not going to do any of those questions because people are people. Like, I don't know what clothes I'm going to wear tomorrow. Let's put it that way. But
neither.
yeah, but not thinking right now. But and you don't need to have an answer for this. But in like say the very very long term, say I don't know, like post basketball, is there something you have an idea of what you'd like to do after, or would you like to still be involved in the game? I know this is a bit of a hard question, but I'm basically telling you to tell me what your life is in 10 years or 15 years.
I think the most honest answer to this question is I literally have no idea, Preet. I have no idea what I want to do. I have a degree in political science and I have a master's in communications, and I have no idea. I'm so okay with that. I think the reality is, I think there's so many people that need, you know, a 10-year plan, a 5-year plan, a 1-year plan, and I'm so happy not having any of those. So I have no idea.
Yeah, I love that. It's going to be exciting to see just in general your journey as a basketball player and your journey in life as well. See, it's always exciting though, where you don't know where things are going to go. Normally, not normally, sorry, but sometimes people may say that not having a plan is a bad idea, blah, blah, blah. But I think it's exciting. Like, why do you need a plan? Why do you need to lay out the rest of your life from this moment? Why can't you just go with it and be excited and not know where you're going to be? That's like the fun part of life.
For sure. Absolutely. I totally agree.
Yeah. And another thing I wanted to ask you, and you can tell me if you don't have an answer to this, but let's say that post-college you decided, nah, basketball's not for me. What do you think you would have tried to go on to do?
Good question. I think something in media. I think I think I would have maybe just explored some options of media or journalism. Yeah, I don't know. I never thought about it really because I just was so sure I was going traveling that it wasn't even a question. Yeah.
I like that. Yeah, because I remember even when I met you traveling, you didn't know how much longer you had left.
Yeah.
If I remember correctly, when I think I was there when you signed your contract in Buenos Aires, or verbally agreed that you were going to play basketball in New Zealand. I think even that was a surprise, wasn't it? Like it felt like maybe a month ago that a return to basketball so soon wasn't on the cards.
Yeah, it was kind of always in the back of my mind, so it wasn't like a shock, but it was definitely not something that I was, thinking a lot about. It just kind of got the opportunity and I took it.
Yeah, I like that. Another thing I wanted to ask you was, so when you had your time traveling, of course you got like anonymity in terms of, being yourself, not like people not knowing who you are, not knowing you were a basketball player, you are a basketball player even. In the US when you're playing college ball, were you like quite often recognized by people, somewhat famous on the campus, kind of known?
No, I wouldn't say that. I would say at BYU there was definitely attention around our team because I had some like social media stars on my team. So there was a few girls that were like big on YouTube and TikTok.
Yeah.
And so our team got more attention, and then we were really good, so it got even more attention. So yeah, maybe a little bit. But overall, I think I've never really experienced, that's definitely the most sort of attention I've received as an athlete. But I would say for the most part, I mean, I love my privacy, so I'm not complaining. I think for the most part, most people don't know who I am and shouldn't.
Yeah. Oh, that sounds nice though. Like when I meet people sometimes who say they dream of being famous. For me, I don't think I'd ever want to be famous. I want to go to a cafe and eat food and get a coffee and no one know me.
Oh my gosh, I couldn't think of anything worse than being famous, genuinely.
Yeah, like, yesterday, I went to a cafe and Aiden and I went outside. And when I went outside, I saw, have you heard of an actress called Gwendoline Christie? She's, if you've ever watched Game of Thrones.
I was going to say, she's from Game of Thrones. Yeah.
Brienne of Tarth. Saw her outside the cafe waiting for a coffee. And I didn't talk to her because I'm like, look, it's Monday. It's like 2:30 p.m. She's clearly outside where she's not going to be recognized. Because she's very famous here, and also she's really tall. Like, she's taller than you. Like, you can.
Oh, she's very tall. Yeah.
Yeah, she's like 6'3", which for European listeners is 1.90 m, which is very tall. So like you notice her, but I was just thinking, I was like, on one hand, London, certain areas is good to be famous because you can kind of not be recognized all the time. Unless you're like David Beckham level of famous. But on the other hand, it's like, I don't think I'd ever want my life to be like, I have to think when I can go out to do normal shit.
Yeah, for sure. I honestly couldn't think of anything worse. Anything.
And with that aspect, I guess, would you ever say if the opportunity came about, I'm not talking about immediate, I'm sure you currently love your situation, but if you could play in the States again, given, if I'm correct, I might be wrong here, but the States is like the place where basketball is the most famous in the world, right?
Yeah. I mean, like the highest level of basketball would be in the States. It would be the WNBA. I have no dreams or aspirations to play in the WNBA at all. Yeah.
Do you feel like that's where life would change a bit too much in terms of maybe intensity, pressure, and also just being able to live a normal life?
I just don't, it's not my goal to be the best of the best. And I think that's okay. I think sometimes athletes get shamed for not wanting to be the best player. I don't want to be the best player on my team. I definitely don't want to be in the WNBA. Like, I don't want to be the best of the best. I really enjoy the player that I am, and I respect the player that I am. And I think I definitely think I have value, and I have, I can add a lot to a team. But I don't need to score 30 a game. I don't need to be in the papers. I don't need to have that's not why I play basketball. It's not what I'm trying to get out of basketball at all.
And I think a lot of people really forget this. I think in everyone's minds who are viewers or people who aren't athletes quite often think, the aim is to be as good as you can to get to the better leagues, to win trophies, blah, blah, blah. But people forget it is also a job. Like, you can just be in it to enjoy it. Like, I think the best parallel to give is, say, I don't know, for me, I work in insurance. I work for a decent company. It's like, am I always striving to go to a bigger company? Do I need to chase promotion and go up the hierarchy and become a director or a member of the board or a CEO? And the answer is no. For some people, they might dream of working for a very big company in insurance and progressing through the ranks and getting better pay and blah, blah, blah. But the reality is, for a lot of people, it's like you get to a stage where you say, I'm content at my level. I can work good hours. I have a life outside and I'm happy. And it's like, and you don't need to chase more. And quite often 100%. It feels like in the world of sport, it's like that really isn't considered. Why can't someone do something because they enjoy it and not have to strive to, I don't know, do all this other stuff with it?
Totally agree.
Yeah. But it does sound like, irregardless of that, it does sound like it's really cool that you're playing basketball in Sweden. And if I'm correct, do you get opportunity to play in like the European competitions? Like, I mean, like I probably butcher the name, but it's like the equivalent of, if you know much about football or soccer, as some people call it, the Champions League in football. I believe in basketball, there is like a European competition where
there's definitely there's EuroLeague, there's Euro Cup, there's definitely different basketball stuff that you can do in Europe. I mean, Europe is, I would say, like, There's the WNBA, then there's the WNBL, which is in Australia, and then there's EuroLeague. Those are the three like biggest basketball competitions in the world, especially EuroLeague.
Right,
so yeah.
But in EuroLeague, do you get, say, tournaments where teams from different countries play each other?
Yeah, that's what it is. That's what EuroLeague is. It's
Gotcha.
It's exactly the same as football.
Okay, gotcha. Are your team in it this year?
No, we are not.
I can cut that out.
No, it's fine. I don't mind. I really don't mind.
No, that's a joke. That's a joke. But no, that's really cool as well, because I guess it's not your first time in Europe, right? Or is it?
No. I mean, it's my first time living in Europe, but I've been here before, yeah.
Because you have family from England, right?
Yeah, my mum is British, but she's lived all over the world, so not a ton of family there. Like, she has a sister in Australia, a sister in Portugal. Her mum lives there, but that's it, I think. Yeah.
But it must be cool, though, given, you've moved to Sweden now. It gives you opportunities to kind of travel more, because once you're in Europe compared to New Zealand, you can travel the rest of Europe very easily.
Very close. Yeah, exactly. Very, very close.
And, do you have an idea of anywhere you'd like to go? I saw you were recently in Denmark.
Yeah, I went to Copenhagen, which was really cool. Very close to where I'm living. I'm living right outside of Stockholm. I'm going to go to Berlin next. That's my big thing, because my older brother lives there. And nice. I've never been, and he's lived there for years, and I want to visit him.
Oh, Berlin's amazing.
Yeah,
if you ever want to go to a place where no one else truly gives a fuck about what else anyone does, that is Berlin, and it's great. You can really be whoever you want to be. You can, I don't know, you can go dressed like the Tooth Fairy and sit on a train at 9 a.m. while everyone's going to work, and no one is going to stare at you.
Yeah, that's actually awesome. I actually love that. I
don't know why I thought of the Tooth Fairy. That's whatever. But no. Sorry, but another question I actually want to ask you, because it just kind of popped into my head now. I think we've talked about this previously, but how do you feel when you tell people you're an athlete, you're a basketballer who plays at a very high level?
I don't tell people actually normally, unless contextually they'd know because I meet them playing basketball. But honestly, it's not something that I bring up much, because again, I don't want to be so closely tied to that identity. I don't find it like charming when someone's like, "Oh, you're a pro athlete. That's so cool." It's just like, it's actually like the least cool thing about me, I think. So yeah, I don't know. It's honestly not a big topic of, this is the most I've talked about basketball in probably a year. It's not and that's my job, you know what I'm saying? But it's not a big topic, with my friends, with my family. I don't spend a lot of time talking about basketball, talking about what I do. Yeah.
Which makes sense. When I finish work, the last thing I want to do when I go home is talk about work. I'm in it to get my headspace out of that and relax.
100%.
Yeah. I actually think this is probably a good note to end on. Then it's been
amazing.
It's been great interviewing on this, because also as well, to give the audience more context, Tegan had a podcast while she was traveling. I hope you're okay with me saying that, but she had a podcast while she was traveling called Traveling Alone Together.
Yes.
I hope that was right. Yeah, that is right.
Yes, perfect.
Yeah. And I was actually on her podcast over a year ago now, actually. Mm-hmm. And when I finished traveling and was thinking of stuff I wanted to do and passion to pursue, actually, from being on that podcast with Tegan, it actually kind of spurred me on to make my own podcast. So I actually don't think this podcast would exist now if I didn't meet you. I really don't think it would.
That's so nice of you to say. I think you would have found your way somewhere. But I'm happy you had a good experience on my podcast. My podcast was not as legit as yours. It was very hobby, not good editing and all that sort of stuff. Yours is much more professional. But I love talking to people. And I wanted to say thank you very much for having me on your podcast. I appreciate the chat and the time that you've spent.
Oh no, it's been great. And before we wrap up, is there anything you want to plug? You can plug for my podcast, you can plug your basketball team, or you can plug nothing. It's up to you.
I'm going to plug love and gratitude. That's what I'm going to plug. Go tell somebody you love them, and go tell somebody you're grateful for them.
I love that. Very, very nice note to end on. But yeah, thank you so much for coming on, Tegan. It's been great talking to you, and it's been great having everything come full circle in the podcast world.
Likewise. Thanks for having me, Preet.